Praise God.
Amen.
Just hope everyone's doing good today. Thanks again for Pastor giving me this opportunity for a few minutes. I know we have a lot planned today, so quickly want to say thanks to everyone who has helped out and with the planning for the retreat. Everyone who's helped so far, and those who are coming. I know some of you aren't able to come because of travel or work and everything like that. Sorry about that. We tried our best to pick a date that was good. This was the only one in the month of October, so. Especially with this being the first time in EAG's history that we're doing something like this. We're all learning as we go along. So thank you again to those who are coming. We're doing our best to make it a very relevant and restful time for people of all ages, from the youngest one all the way up to the MGs and just who are also coming with us. So thank you again. We'll be giving all the full details for those who are coming next week after service. But it'll be a great time for all of us. Just a really quick thing, just next slide. Just wanted to show the theme for this retreat is Mark 6:31. It says, "Come with me, come by yourselves to a quiet place and rest." That's kind of the theme I want to do for this year's retreat. I think even as Christians, many of us get so caught up with our daily lives that we forget how to breathe, and we forget how to just breathe in His presence and live with Him. We get caught up in our responsibilities and we don't take time. And if we look at the life of Jesus, He constantly did this with his disciples. In the midst of His ministry, He took them away for a day or two to make sure that they were grounded in Him. And this is very important for us, because if we don't take this kind of time constantly in our lives, we'll lose our foundations and our grounding. So in the middle of our busy lives, let's just take a day to find our grounding again in Him. So that's what this is all about. Next slide. So the topic that I quickly want to talk to you all about is just a short one. It's being strategically planted where God wants you to be. So next slide. If we think about a plant, if we think about crops, plants are planted by a person, right? We're not talking about weeds or things like that, but plants like bushes, plants like trees. They are planted in a specific spot for a specific purpose there. And for those who know about gardening, which is not me, by the way, this came from my good friend Google. Many times flowers and things like that, when those are planted, they're not the only things that are planted there. When gardeners plant a certain kind of plant, they also plant what are called cover crops around it, because these cover crops have one purpose: to protect the main plant from weeds and other things that could damage them. So if a gardener is going to plant a field of flowers, he'll also plant all around them these guardian crops to cover them and protect them from insects and all these other things. So without these cover weeds, the weaker plants would be crushed, their nutrients would be taken away by the soil, etc. So each of these has its purpose that it's planted for. Next slide. So the thing we have to remember as plants, the Bible constantly refers to us as trees, it refers to us as plants, it refers to us as branches on a tree, branches on a vine. If we think about the purpose of plants, the plant never fully understands what the gardener is planting. It's planted where you want, and it's planted at a certain time in a certain way you want. The gardener controls everything, from the amount of water you're given, from the amount of sunlight you're given, from the amount of everything. It's all controlled by the gardener. The plant has only one job: just to exist and do its best with what it's been given. So the one thing I want us to notice is that a cover crop that is supposed to guard a plant, it never tries to fulfill a function other than the one which the gardener intended for it. If it was planted for the purpose of guarding a field, it doesn't try to become the rose. At the same time, the rose doesn't try to become a guardian crop, because it would be terrible at it. Each plant fulfills the purpose for which it was planted. So many times in our Christian lives, there are all these books out today, the purpose-driven life, finding God's will for your life, finding where He wants you to do, how to walk in step with God's will. I think this is a huge cry of our generations these days. How do we know what God wants us to do? How do we walk in it? But if we take a step back, are you willing to walk in the path that God has for you? I think another point of this generation is we're taught from the time we grow up that reach out for more, become a leader, become this. So in the professional world, from my HR background, it's kind of interesting. Some kids come out of college with this attitude. They find a full-time job, and then 3 weeks later, they're like, all right, time to promote me. Make me a manager now. I'm a leader now, promote me. And they're like, no, you've been here for 3 weeks, so you don't know anything. No, but I'm supposed to be a leader. I've read leadership books. I've read all this, I'm supposed to be a leader. So we come out with this mentality of, I'm never where I'm supposed to be, I'm always supposed to be stepping forward. So there's this impatience to grow where we're planted. There's always this reach out, there must be something more than this. Why should I be satisfied with this? You told me I'm a leader. You told me I have all this potential. So why should I be satisfied with my current thing? But if we trust our lives to a divine God, if we truly believe that He's planting us where He wants us to be at a certain point, are we sometimes guiding our lives through our own motivations or by His timing in our lives? Next slide. So, for us as Christians, just a short thing I want us all to think about this week, where you are right now, where you are, your job, your family, this church, etc. You've been planted here for this season. I believe just like nature, our lives have seasons in our lives. There's a season of growth, there's a season of sadness, there's a season of joy. For this particular season, for some reason, God has you in the exact spot where He wants you to be right now. But are we allowing our natural human instinct to be impatient where He has planted us and trying to get out of our planted spot before the right time? There's a certain kind of the bush that grows where the gardener places it in one kind of soil for about a few months until it grows to a certain point. Then it's ready to be transplanted to the next spot in the soil. But what if the plant had its own way of going wherever it wanted? Way before it was ready to move, it would take itself out and go to the new spot. And then what would happen? It's not ready for the new spot yet, so it would shrivel up and die. How many of us are being impatient with God's planting process in our lives? Before He is ready to move us, we want to move. Before He tells us, all right, you are ready, your heart is ready, your habits are ready, you have the maturity ready for me to move you. You want me to move. You are unsatisfied with where I've placed you. So just a quick lesson for us is, where you are right now is where God needs you. It's almost like He's counting on you to be who you are in this season of your life. There's an example. If we think about the life of Billy Graham, does anyone remember or know how he was saved in the first place? And does anyone know the story? He was hanging out in the parking lot of a tent meeting or something. He was just hanging out, not a Christian, just there, kind of to cause trouble almost. He was just a young kid, and one of the ushers in the meeting saw him standing there, and he went out to him and just invited him in. And that's where he was saved, and that's where Billy Graham's life started out. So, but what would have happened if the usher was unsatisfied with this position? I'm supposed to be on the stage here. Why am I in the back here, outside the tent, in the hot weather of this farm town? Why am I standing out here? I should be on the stage. I should be the one going up there. So, you know what? I'm not going to even do my job. I'm going to just sit here and just wait out the night. Well, what Billy Graham needed at that moment was not a pastor. He didn't need a pastor at that moment. He needed a normal person who was exactly where God planned him to be. Because if a pastor had gone out to Billy Graham, Billy Graham wanted nothing to do with the pastor at that moment. What God needed in that moment was someone who was planted in an exact spot and was the exact person God needed him to be. So because of that, he was saved. How many of us are confident that where God has you right now, He wants you to be exactly who you are. He doesn't want you trying to be someone else in your position. He needs you to be you. For one summer, and along with this, I worked at the airport with my dad over there. So when you work at the airport, you have access to all the hidden areas, etc., like that. But so many times there was a pastor who came in, didn't know the language, didn't know immigration, and he would get stuck somewhere. So in order to help that guy, it didn't matter how great of a pastor you were, you couldn't go in there and help him. What he needed was someone who worked at the airport, who did his job well. So because, my dad was in there, he could go in there and help him. Me as an outsider, I could want to help him as much as possible, but if I went through those doors, what would happen to me? You would never see me again, right? But because there was somebody planted there who was doing his job to the best of his ability, he could help people who I never could. In this way, where you are planted right now, you're able to help people who I can never help in the hospitals, etc., like that. You will meet people and they will listen to you because of your position, because of your background that I will never be able to reach. In the same way, Those of us in business and the IT world, we need people who will listen to us because we're on their level. If you as a nurse or as a student go in there, they wouldn't listen to you. But because we've been planted there, we have a specific audience who will listen to us. So where you are right now is where you've been specifically planted by God to be used right there. So just a quick thing for us, God is counting on you to be who you are in this situation in life. Don't try to be someone else. He wants you to be exactly who you are, where you're planted, and that way we can bring many more plants into the kingdom of God with us. All right, thank you everyone, and may God bless you with these words.